All right, let's dive in. Today, we're going to break down the art of timeless attraction, and we're basing this explainer on the work of author Alina Chamberlain. We're going to walk through a six-part framework on what the source material calls feminine magnetism. And it all starts with what's happening on the inside long before we get to any external stuff.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with the aura of attraction, then we'll get into that really tricky line between sexuality and vulgarity. After that, we're going to look at first impressions and communication, then tackle how all of this actually fits into our modern lives, and we'll wrap up with the one thing the source claims is the key to holding a relationship together for the long haul.
So where does this all even begin? Well, according to this source, it's not about what you're wearing or how you look. Not at first. Nope. It all starts with an internal energy, a kind of core state of being that's the real foundation of attraction.
And this core energy, it's got a name: the master frequency. You can think of it as this kind of internal glow. It's less about the latest fashion and way more about a deep, authentic connection between your spirit and your body. The source argues this is what truly captures and, more importantly, holds a partner's attention over the long term.
Okay, so if attraction really starts with this internal energy, how does it show up on the outside? Well, this brings us to a really crucial distinction the source makes between two very, very different ways that energy can be expressed.
The whole idea here is that true sexuality isn't about being obvious or over the top. It's framed as this powerful internal energy that people can feel even when someone is completely dressed. It's really a mix of confidence and elegance, not just about what's being revealed.
And this slide, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you have sexuality, which is described as this internal thing, this radiance that invites people to connect with you. But on the other side, you've got vulgarity, shown as an external display that's basically just demanding attention. According to this source, that fundamental difference changes everything about how a person is perceived.
And this quote just nails the core argument. The source defines vulgarity by the misplacement of eroticism. So it's not about the clothing itself, but the context. What's powerful and appropriate in private, it argues, can send a completely different and often unintended signal in public.
All right, so we've got this internal energy thing down. Now what? How is it expressed on the outside? Well, that brings us to what the source calls the visual gateway. Basically, the huge role appearance plays in making that all-important first impression.
Look, the source doesn't beat around the bush on this one. It states pretty bluntly that for men, that initial connection is visual. It argues that while a lot of men might say they prefer natural beauty, what they're often really responding to is a polished, well-cared-for appearance.
So how exactly does the source recommend achieving this polish of presence? Well, it breaks it down into three key areas. First up is the silhouette, dressing in a way that highlights your natural shape. Second is grooming, the details like clean hair and neat makeup that really signal self-respect. And finally, and this one might be the most important of all, is openness, projecting warmth through your expression, which the source calls the most magnetic tool you have.
Okay, so you've made that great first impression. The visual gateway is passed. Now the connection has to go deeper, right? And that leads us to stage 4, communication, which the source describes as the bridge that connects to a woman's true character.
Now, this source introduces a concept it says is way more important than being book smart or having a high-powered job. It's a very specific kind of intelligence that's absolutely crucial for connection. So the big question is, what exactly is relational intelligence?
And here it is. It's the ability to be an active listener. The idea here is that showing genuine interest in your partner's world, in what they're passionate about, and supporting their expertise is what makes them see you as a truly brilliant partner.
But it's not just about listening. The source points to a few other key traits that help build that bridge to character. It's about having charisma and poise, sure, but also a sense of ease and a good sense of humor. It's projecting confidence in how you carry yourself, and maybe most importantly, just being an interesting, multifaceted person with your own passions and your own life.
This all sounds great in theory, but let's be real. How does this actually work in the messy modern world we live in? This brings us to the challenge of balancing all our different roles, and the two extreme traps the source warns us to avoid.
So the first trap to watch out for is what's called the housewife trap. This is where someone gets completely consumed by domestic duties. The text warns that, yeah, a clean home is great, but a woman who loses her own identity in endless chores risks becoming, well, invisible to her partner's desire. And on the total opposite end of the spectrum, you've got the businesswoman trap.
Here, a woman is 100% focused on her career. And while her success is definitely attractive, the source argues it isn't inherently sexual, and her relationship might end up suffering from emotional neglect.
So what's the solution? The source calls it the harmonious middle. It's less about trying to do everything perfectly and way more about setting priorities wisely. The focus shifts from just getting tasks done to improving the quality of your interactions and consciously making time and energy to invest in your own health and that inner radiance we talked about.
And that brings us to the final piece of the puzzle, the one element the source describes as the ultimate, sustaining force in a long-term partnership, the thing that really holds it all together when life throws its challenges at you.
And that glue is sexual energy. Now, to be super clear, it's not talking about promiscuity here. It's positioned as this fundamental driving force that keeps that hunter's instinct alive in a partner and gives the relationship the strength and resilience to weather pretty much any storm.
And you know what? This whole concept becomes even more critical as time goes on. The source claims that as a relationship matures, a partner's desire starts to rely more and more on psychological triggers. So by maintaining this energy through her voice, her movements, her whole spirit, a woman provides what the source calls the psychological oxygen his libido needs to survive.
Which leaves us with this one big question, one that really gets to the heart of this entire framework. According to this perspective, is time as attraction just a matter of chance, just dumb luck and chemistry? Or is it an art, something that can, and maybe must, be intentionally cultivated? That right there is the central idea to really think about from this explainer.